Hi, everyone. This is Alexander Fernandez with Video Games Real Talk. I hope you're having a lovely day today, wherever you are. It is a beautiful day on this side, and we have a very fine special guest, a man who needs no introduction, Dave Lang, CEO of Iron Galaxy. Dave, how you doing?
Hello, how are we doing?
Doing all
I
right.
should answer your question first. I'm lovely. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right, man. I'm doing all right. It's Friday, and what can we say? It's like I'm happy for the weekend to finally arrive.
Yes, indeed. It's been a week.
Yeah, it is, hasn't it? I mean, it's
Yeah.
life in video games, right?
Have you ever seen Fear of a Black Hat?
Yeah, actually, a long time ago. It's been a
So it's
while.
a so if you've never seen it, listeners, it's basically it came out right before CB4, and it's basically the exact same plot with different characters and actors, and it was kind of contentious at the time about who ripped off whom or whatever. But anytime someone says, "special guests," there's a line there's a line in there where they were on the marquee. The Fear of a Black Hat was the protagonist group. They were on the marquee with a bunch of other rappers as special guests, and there was a whole thing about their also special motherfucking guests, and they were very upset that they were special guests. Although I am thrilled to be a special guest, so sorry for the non sequitur, but there you go.
No, actually, I appreciate that, and I have to tell you, CB4 was one of the most classic movies that come out. I mean, honestly, I remember when that came out, CB4 was just that was legit. I mean, Chris Rock doing its thing. I mean, come on, man.
Yeah, Charlie Murphy was legendary in that movie. That
Well,
movie's great too.
what's
Yeah.
actually Charlie Murphy. I completely forgot he was in CB4.
Yeah, that was his big, like, break, I believe.
Oh,
Um,
before Chappelle.
yeah, before
Yeah,
Chappelle.
before
Yeah.
Chappelle. Yeah, no, absolutely. So, kids, everyone out there in the audience who's like, "What are these guys talking about?" Get CB4, and then make sure you see the Chappelle show when he does. Well, the entire Rick James thing was hilarious. That was
Yeah,
just I mean, that's
yeah.
classic comedy right there,
Yeah,
that's
Chappelle Show, it's on Netflix now, although, there's a hashtag movement not to watch it because Chappelle doesn't get royalties off of it. They're trying to
yeah.
give strong arms Netflix into giving him some money, but, however you feel about that, watch it or don't.
What's interesting about that is that, the entire, I guess you could say, controversy around that about the fact how he doesn't get any royalties from that show, which is probably by far one of the most classic comedy sketch shows, just off the cuff brilliance. It's kinda sad. I
Yeah,
mean,
it's one of
actually,
those
it's
that,
very
like, it
sad.
burned so bright for so short a time,
Yeah.
but it was, like, such it just crossed, like, every, like, demographic I was aware of, like, everyone watched that show while it was out, and then he had enough of it and all the bullshit, and he moved to Africa with his family, and then no one heard from him for, like, 5 years. It's just wild, and now to hear he doesn't own the publishing rights or whatever, it's just crazy.
Yeah. Well, what's funny is that that's a great crossover into video games because we used to live that type of life as well here in the games industry. I'm sure there are many titles that I mean this industry is littered with things of I signed it away and I don't have it anymore, tales of woe and all that. But this is just one of those things where the importance of contracts and understanding what you're negotiating that really matters.
You know what? This is one of those things I have a fairly, uh, like, hot take opinion, I guess, from most people in the industry.
All right, let's
Like, I
do
think
it.
most people in the industry are like, "You have to fight really hard to keep everything you make and blah, 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 blah." And I have no problem, like, giving up things we've made, for the right reason. Like, the odds of anything being successful are so infinitesimally small. Um, you have to give away so much so often to keep ownership of it.
Mhm.
Um, and, it's just not worth it most of the time. So, like, everyone's like, "Creators deserve to own their shit," and they probably do, but, money counts too. And, I just look at these games as, like, not every single game, but, like, we still own Dive Kick or whatever, but, like, you look at, like, Racketeer or Extinction or whatever, um, we don't own those, and, it's fine. They were building blocks for our company, and they let us go to the next level, and those games let us build bigger and better games, and, one day we'll get where we need to be, but if I had been like, "No, I'm not signing the Racketeer deal because we don't own it. Microsoft, get fucked." It's like that we wouldn't have made that game, right? It just wouldn't happen, and it wouldn't have built all the other stuff we needed.
Course we're not gonna do that deal. I mean, but the thing is, I guess that's the thing that, if you take a step back and you think about this for a second, I mean, when you own the company, when you own the businesses, you own Iron Galaxy. I mean, you're in the position to say, hey, you know what? In my long vision for my business, I know this is just one of the blocks I need to use to get to where I want to go. But the reality is like you win some, you lose some. And I think that a lot of, like, say, independent developers or indies, they don't see it that way because perhaps they don't have a long form vision. I mean, do you think that makes a difference?
I think when every so that was kinda my off the cuff response, but the reality of it is everything is different. Like, if you've invested all your own money in making a game and you've taken all the risk in making a game and you make something that people have interest in publishing, like, that's a different situation than, like, I got funding to make this thing, right? And maybe that's a case where you should own the rights to it or whatever. But I do think, like, um, the most indies, I know that I've been super tight with, they all, they for the most part, they get it. They like, who they play on Twitter is not necessarily what they understand to be true in real life, you know? And so they might be, like, bemoaning the fact that you have to give up an IP or you have to give up whatever to get some games made. I think most of them get it, and the ones that don't, I just think it's just decoupled from reality of any business, like, not only video games, but, like, TVs, film, books, just, whatever it is. You make it, someone pays for it, 90% of the time, the person that pays for it owns it, you know?
Yeah, and that, honestly, from that standpoint, it makes sense. I mean, honestly, if you invested all the money, all the time, the effort, and cold hard cash, that's definitely going to be something that's there. And of course, there's the flip side. The people who basically bring the execution as well as the concept. I mean, there's a discussion to be had, but in the end, I think you're hitting a real point. It's not just an off the cuff point. It's really there's something that's here is that money has a value, and that's something where it's hard to balance between the two. But really, in the end of the day, you kind of have to understand that well, nothing's free. You give up somewhere. It just depends on where you can give up, and really, again, what that vision is going to be for your future. Are you
Yeah.
going to make more hits, or are you only going to have, are you the one trick pony, so to speak?
Well, it's just the classic, like, what leverage does every party actually have, right? And if you think about, like, say you're a game that, not a lot of people know about and there's not a lot of buzz about because you've made this thing in secrecy and you need, like, $500,000 or $1,000,000 to close it out strong, and you go shipping around for it, like, most publishers, they see 500 games a year, right? And, none of them have a crystal ball that they know which ones are gonna be successful and which ones aren't. And so, they're trying to build a portfolio. They're not gonna sign if they're signing 5 games, they're not signing 5 first-person shooters usually. They're gonna sign, like, 1 shooter, 1 racing game, 1 fighting game, whatever it is, right? And so, like, they probably get if they're signing 5 and they're getting pitched 500 and you're, say, giving them an FPS, they've probably got 100 FPSs to pick from. And they're gonna generally go with the one they think is good and has a chance of being successful and they can get the best deal with, right? And so, in that situation, developers have 0 leverage and they should just recognize that and negotiate accordingly. But if it's different, if it's something like, like No Man's Sky is probably a great example. Like, the team at Hello Games had all the leverage in the world. They had people fawning over them, like, giving their next of kin to publish that game and put it on their platform. Like, that's when it flips, and that's when you do have the leverage. But those situations that are so few and far between, um, that, it's just, you just can't build a business around the assumption that that's gonna be you. You have to build the business around the assumption that you're gonna be the prior case, not the latter.
So, what do you make of these dynamics? Because I mean, that's something what you're saying that I find interesting. There's a pragmatism that every negotiation has a beginning and an end, but they don't necessarily reflect or supposed to affect what has happened prior. And, in this case, imagine basically right now, you own Dive Kick. Then the next thing you do ends up being, the next Halo, but you don't own that. Then you come back to the next situation where, you make something new and it's explosive again. Do you find the whiplash in that kind of strange, or is that just, I mean, that's just business. It's just how it is.
Yeah, it's like you said, you win some, you lose some, and, maybe you don't own the IP outright, but maybe, you negotiated rights of first refusal to do a sequel, or maybe you negotiated, "Hey, if you do make a sequel or a spin-off game from this, I get a small royalty forever off of it, off of any sequel or spin-off, right, in exchange for giving you this IP," right? And so, like, there's things you can do to kinda make, the pill less bitter to swallow, but, like, I never get mad. So, first of all, what you said has never happened to me. So, I can't really speak on this authoritatively because 'cause I've never had, like, a runaway hit that's made a
You
ton of
never
money,
had that
right?
success. It was
Yeah,
never like, "You know what? I got Halo in a bottle."
right, but it is yeah, I have signed bad deals that are bad in hindsight, and I never get bitter about it. I don't blame the partner about it. It's just like, you did the best with the information you had at the time, and you're not gonna get them all right. You're just absolutely not gonna get them all right, like, no one does. And again, you have to think about this stuff like you're building a portfolio, which means you're it's not just one game. Like, the future of any company, if it hinges on one game, you're fucked, right? And so you have to think about this shit in the long term and over multiple titles, and then give yourself enough at bats where you have a chance to hit a home run. you know? Like, if you I'm gonna go to the plate first time and hit it out the park, it's like, that's not gonna happen. It happens just like, almost never. And so it's just a numbers game at some point, and you have to be in the game long enough to finally get that hit. So,
You know what? The thing is, I think you're hitting right. That long game. When did you realize that it was all about the long game? That, you know what? Nine say no, one says yes, and that's all that matters.
yeah, I think I kind of stumbled into it, like, just my instincts are, um how do I describe this? Like,
You
I've
watch
kind of
CB before
always.
you.
Yeah. I guess, I've always kind of for the first, 5 years our company was in existence, I think I grossly undervalued what we brought to the table, and because that was kind of my mindset, um, about all those things, I just didn't really feel like I had any leverage or leverage at all or whatever, right? And so, because I'm, like, resigned to the fact that I probably have to sign some bad deals just to get going, right? That kind of forced me to take a long view. So it, like, wasn't like a strategic choice I made, it was more just, like, the reality of the situation I was in, that, like, "Okay, I need to get enough under my belt, so the next deal's better than the one before it," and so on and so on, and that was kind of the early goal is, like, every deal's just better than the next deal's always better than the one I just did, you know? And as long as that's true, we'll be fine one day.
Nice.
And so, yeah, it's kind of like and then when I look back at it, like, like around that 5-year mark, I'm like, that was, like, inadvertently, like, really smart. And, like, if I'm, like, I guess I'm very lucky the first game wasn't, like, an indie darling, 'cause I'd probably be out of business by now.
You know, the thing is funny about that idea that for 5 years you basically are crawling through the sewer system like Shawshank Redemption until you come to the outside and put your hands in the rain and cleanse yourself of everything. I find that fascinating because a lot of to the point of basically thank goodness you didn't have an indie darling hit. I mean, having a hit so early on can really skew the idea of what this industry is, and I can imagine that once you have a darling, it's very hard to kill the darling. It can also just basically skew your perspective of how this business works. I mean, with your comment there, I mean, let me ask you, like, what do you think would have happened if you would have had? I mean, imagine Dive Kick being just blew up and was 10 times what it did for you. What would that have done for you?
Well, it would've done I mean, there's a lot of things it would've done. Like, first off, we would've so, like, Dive Kick came out, I think, in 2013, right? So that's 7 years ago, right? If my math is right. The first version of it anyway. And that game did fine. Like, it didn't set the world on fire, it didn't tank of money for us, it broke about even at the end of the day with all the versions and everything. And so, um, but, like, it had that done something like, done like a Super Meat Boy or other games of that era that kind of just absolutely went off the charts, like, the thing is, like, indie games you're selling them like, we sold Dive Kick, I think, for $10 was list price when it came out. And so say it went absolutely apeshit and sold 3,000,000 copies. Okay, after Steam takes their cut, we're getting, 7,000,000, or $7 a copy. So that's like $21,000,000 we would've netted from Dive Kick over the course of, like, 2 or 3 years, right? Now, that's like a wow, Dive Kick sold, like, 3,000,000, that's amazing. Well, that's enough $21,000,000 is enough to run my company for a year and a half, you know? And
Yeah.
so, it's like, even if I realize that not all indies are my size, but you're asking me, like, what my situation was, right? But, like, so say it did blow up, we kind of did this actually, we assumed it was repeatable. We assumed, like, "Oh, no, the magic is us," right? And, we're the ones that made this happen. It wasn't just, like, a combination of right game, right time, other market factors, uh and just like where the social taste is at the time and just where just where all these kind of immeasurable things are in the purchasing space. And so we would have assumed it was us. We probably would have doubled down on doing original stuff and we would have burned through that 21 million and we would have not done the work we're doing still doing to this day of like co-development or porting or, with occasionally making a game of our own on the side or whatever, and we'd be out of business. Like, there's no way we wouldn't, right? We would have hired differently. We would have hired like more creative people that are harder to kind of work into a co-dev scene. And for a company like ours, not necessarily like yours, but like for a company like ours for sure. Um, yeah, so I think it would have been overall like probably destructive. I mean, there's obviously companies that have navigated those waters, like Clay and Supergiant, spring to mind. But like, I just don't like it. Like gun to my head, do I wish Dive Kick sold more? Of course I do. right? But, like, I don't look back at it and I'm like, "Oh, what could have been?" Because like, I wouldn't trade for where we are now for anything.
So what you're saying is you're not gonna say rosebud on your deathbed in case it
Correct.
goes fall to the ground or die in life.
Dr. Scholl's.
I
Yeah,
know, if
yeah.
only. Well, I mean, this is the thing. It's like, you look at this, like that there's a, obviously there's a great sense of pragmatism when you talk, which I really enjoy. It's what I love speaking to you is that, you're selling like it is. This is the real talk. It's like, what would it have been great to do 21 million? Yeah, of course. I'm not going to turn that down either. But at the same time, you also understand that it's like it is what it is. You move on and then you go on to the next one. But what I'm curious about is that part where you came to the realization, like, okay, we're not the magic, or it was, let me rephrase this. It's not that you weren't the magic, it's just that it was your magic plus plus. And there are things that are in that, the culture, the timing, or usually just timing. What was that? When you came to that realization, like, oh shit, it's not just our genius. What was
Yeah, I
that?
mean,
How'd
it
that
was when
happen?
we tried to publish other people's competitive games, like when we did Capsule Force and Video Ball, and, uh, quickly kinda realized that, like, it's weird. It's like something it's like academically you know it, but it's a lot about, like, cognitive bias, right? Like, like, these kind of things are 100% cognitive bias, forced because like, academically, they're like, "Do you think you could put out any game and be successful?" I would be like, "No, of course not. That doesn't make any sense." Right? But, like, that's not how you arrive at that place to get there. You do it like like the way we decided to publish other people's games was like, "Okay, this is cool." We just published our first thing ever ourselves, and it did okay, and we had a lot of buzz around it, and I think we know what we did wrong. I think the bottom line is we just spent too much money on the game. Okay, well, why do we spend too much money on the game? Well, there's too many characters, one, but also we're just expensive. Like, we are not, people eating, uh, a cup of noodles 3 times a day. Like, we're an older studio, we're established studio, we've got people with families and, salaries and insurance for everybody and all this stuff, and so it's like, just doing indie games on our budgets was hard, and so it's like, okay, well, how do we leverage kind of this audience we formed with Divekick and the publishing expertise we acquired? Well, I guess we'd have to put out games for cheaper. Well, if we can't do it ourselves, okay, let's partner with other people and do. But at no point in there did I think like, will is this actually a good idea? You know, it was like I was just exploring like the possibility space for our company with what I saw as assets and never really questioned, are those assets legit? Am I overvaluing those assets? And there wasn't a lot of critical thinking about it going on at the time. And that's just strictly cognitive bias kicking in, like survivor syndrome, like, all of those kind of things. And so, um, it wasn't like one thing, but yeah, it was like, I think like we put out Capsule Force and it didn't do well. I mean, the budget on that thing was almost nothing. And Eric and Kat, I love you so much, at Cloudbit Games. You're the best. Um, I don't think the expectations were that that game was going to set the world on fire. It was super fun game, but it's like the independent market was already kind of getting like more triple I and less kind of like garage budget kind of things. Um, that somewhere between uh Capsule Force and Video Ball, I kinda realized it wasn't gonna work, and we were kind of probably fucked. And did a lot of thinking during that time about, okay, how can we change these cards that we've been dealt? What can we do with them to kinda make the success more likely than it was? And so we did some things differently with Video Ball, but ultimately it just, at that point, it took so long to get Video Ball out for that game to get finished and come out that it's like, the market had just changed, and the people that bought 100 games like that a year just didn't do that anymore. And, couple that with, like, the mirage that was, like, dive kick success, and, it's kind of like yeah, it's like so somewhere between to answer your question, somewhere between Capsule Force and Video Ball.
The thing is like this, the ability to lick your wounds once you realize it's not working. That's, you can either be Captain Ahab chasing Moby Dick, or you can realize, that whale is kind of big. And, I'm
Yeah.
just lucky to be alive. So, when you went in and you basically said, okay, this isn't going to happen. Was there that moment? Did you have this kind of like, shit, or was it just like, okay, you know what, no biggie, on to the
Mm,
next adventure?
yeah, for the from there was 2 parts to it. One, the business part was easy. The business part was, okay, like, we lost X $1,000 or X tens of thousands or X hundreds of thousands, whatever it was on these deals, right? But we put that aside to experiment with at the beginning of time. Like, we just made an investment in publishing, and it didn't pan out, right? And so that is like 0 fucks given about that at that point, right? Um, where I got hung up on was a lot more personal stuff that, like, you know, Tim and his team and Eric and Kat, they kinda counted on us to come through for them, and we didn't. And, like, the personal part of that was a lot harder for me than, like, the money part because, like, you know, not that they had, like, they were all had publishers fawning them over or whatever, but they didn't have to partner with us, and they trusted us, and they did it. And to realize, like, the reason we failed was kind of our own hubris, that we shouldn't have been doing it to begin with, essentially. When you realize that, it just kind of feels bad about those people and those people that trusted you to do it in those relationships. And so that was the hard part. And, you never kind of get over something like that. But, our relationship with everyone is still good. Like, I don't think anyone hates us and we don't hate them. And so, I just kind of move on and learn from it. Right.
No, absolutely. Well, I think that this is something that is important. It's like, in the end, all you have is those relationships and you did your best. And like, business isn't a guarantee. And video games is, well, if you ever want to see how fast you can light money on fire and watch it burn, make a video game. I mean, the
Yeah.
thing is, in the end of the day, there is no guarantee. And I think that the learning really, just hearing you talk and basically saying, yeah, I've been there, seen hell, and basically remember basically that moment where you have to basically make a decision that isn't going to be popular, is definitely admitting it's not working, but still going through it and knowing that in the end it's not going to make you're not going to get big fans from this one, but that it is the right thing. It is one of the hardest yet maturing processes of just being a business owner, let alone a game developer, let alone someone who, as a human being has to basically be like, I have to just admit this is just not working out. So it's really great to hear you talk and basically explain that in the end, what you cared about were the people. And this is a relationship business, right? So I mean,
Yeah.
in the end, that's what you're caring about. Yeah, money's money. Money comes and goes, but you know what? Time and people, that's a different story.
Yeah, no, it's just the, it's one of the reasons what you're talking about is, like, it's hard, like, that kind of honesty and that kind of, um, just, "Hey, we fucked up." It's difficult to do, and, like, the longer you go without saying it, the harder it is to eventually say it, you know? And so, it's actually one of the reasons we run the company so transparently to our employees that we do. Like, we have company meetings every single month, and we talk about, "Hey, here's what's working, here's what's not." We want employees to know everything because, like, if there's any thought in my head ever about, like, "Oh, this is gonna suck if everyone knows about this." Well, I better tell them first because I know they're gonna ask about it in the company meeting, right? Like, "Are we gonna publish any more games, David? Seems like these aren't working," right? And so, when you run the company with transparency and openness, with as much stuff as we possibly can, um, it kind of forces you into self-evaluation and kind of critical thinking about what you're doing and why you're doing it, because you never wanna seem to your employees like you're making it up as you're going or you don't know what you're doing, and if you build a culture where your employees call you on stuff all the time, like, I think we have for the most part, um, it just kind of like that behavior kinda self-selects very quickly for you as a leader.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that culture of accountability is key for any longevity. If you really want to have a business that survives longer than 6 months, having a culture of accountability and a culture of basically radical candor is really important, especially when we're talking about a creative endeavor or a technical endeavor like video games. I mean, you're asking people to give their time, their brilliance, their capability into your hands to hopefully steer this into something that can be more. And sometimes you win and sometimes you lose. But I mean, in the case of Dive Kick and your publishing, your foray into publishing, I mean, you seem to have turned that into something. I mean, I would even dare say even better with where you guys are at now. So, kind of take us through that process. Basically from the ashes of publishing, Dave Lang emerges, and what happens then?
Well, I mean, it's important, I guess, to back up beyond that. Like, I kinda didn't really talk about this, but, like, one of the original motivations for doing publishing was we were trying to do just something else, right? Like the stated goal of Iron Galaxy, kind of our only stated goal, is to build a company that we could retire from. We're not gonna go out of business. We're not gonna make decisions that force us to lay people off for financial reasons, you know? We're trying to build a company that's built to last. It'll be here 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, whatever. And so we make decisions based around longevity, and we make decisions based around, like, sustainability, right? And one of the things it's like, and so if you look at, like, um this is an analogy everyone hates, but I can't really think of a better analogy. It's like we had a bunch of, like, for lack of a term, business unit, right? We're doing co-dev, where we embed developers on a team, a much bigger team, usually at a large AAA publisher, and we help them ship their game or work on features or whatever it is. Then we have ports, like Port Pluses, which is like going from like, like a handheld to like a PC where you might need to like do a graphics revamp, or maybe it's an older arcade game like Third Strike was, and you need to figure out a way to make it look better on modern hardware. There's ports down, like Borderlands 2 to the Vita was a port down where you're porting to like a much inferior piece of hardware. And so we had kind of like three quote unquote business units that we're working with. And, we think about like, and then original games. We're always kind of doing one original thing at a time. So there's like the four standard business units we had before publishing. And I think about the business and how we spend our resources as like a craps table, right? It's like, and this is the part where the analogy gets a little whingy for some people, but like I think of like the team at Iron Galaxy, they're all chips, right? And the places on the board are the projects that are working on, right? And it's the platform. It's like, how many chips do we have on Xbox? How many chips do we have on Stadia? How many chips do we have on Nintendo or whatever it is? Okay, how many do we have doing original things? And how many do we have doing codev? And how many do we have doing ports? And does that look like a good spread of chips to me? Where like, if the pit boss just rakes one of the chips away, one of the stacks away, are we gonna be okay? Are we fine? And as long as the answer is yes, then I think we have a good spread. And we got to a point where it was harder and harder for us to keep a good spread with the ambition we wanted to have on some of these projects. Like, when we were doing like 10 projects with 7 people each and we were 75 people, it was pretty easy to keep a good spread of stuff and a good portfolio where, it's like one goes bust, we're fine. But as we grew and wanted to do bigger and better things, it got harder and harder to do that. And so we were like, okay, we need another business unit. Like we need a fifth pillar to do it in. And eventually we landed on the published thing, which took us down that road. And so for us, when it was done, when it was busted, it's like, okay, let's just concentrate on the four pillars. Right. And then there was a lot of post-morteming that was done, between Chelsea and I and some other people in the company, but primarily me and Chelsea. It was like, why did that fail? It's like, well, why did it one of the reasons it failed, we never should have done it the way we did it. That's one thing. But two, once we're in it, let's assume we're in it and then we decide, okay, now why is it being run? Well, it's being run poorly because between me and Chelsea, we didn't have enough bandwidth at the top to kind of do all these 5 pillars. We just, like, we couldn't do it anymore. Like, we finally exhausted, like, our attention span, and so that was ultimately one of the things that led us to bring Adam on and get Adam, out of Sony's clutches and bring him on board with us, is we just needed, like, more people to get more pillars going, and again, but all the reason we're getting more pillars isn't because 'cause we're ambitious or there's this game in my head that needs to get out. It's all about, like, maintaining stability for the employees in the company, and so, that's kind of where the question is like, "Hey, how did you kind of, like, come out of the publishing thing, and what was your next steps?" It's kinda deep valuation on why it failed, and then addressing that, and the way we addressed it was, we still need more pillars. Maybe publishing isn't it, but we still need more, and we also need someone to manage the new pillars, and that's why we brought Adam on ultimately. So that's kind of the next step from there.
The thing is, I think that you, again, another amazing nugget that came out of what you just said was the realization that business units, as much as people can be like, "Ooh," it's
Yeah,
the
it
real.
sounds bad. It just sounds shitty.
It's weird. I look at it, it's like I think that's just reality. I mean, it's like one person can only have so much attention towards one thing, and at one moment in time, you're running 5 different divisions that are trying to put things together. Of course it's going to pull you each way. At one point you can only concentrate on one thing, and the realization with you and Chelsea that basically it's time to bring in another party to have someone to help support us and to support our ambition is important. And I'm going to want to talk about basically that moment of insight. But real quick, when you made that Casino Royale analogy of the chips and you're laying down your spread, I've always looked at it from the standpoint that the games industry literally is gambling. You're laying down your chips, you're rolling dice. The only question is, how much does it cost you to pick up those dice? And that basically translates into your burn rate. And
Yeah.
in the end of the day, I mean, you're shooting it, and I mean, I don't know. I can see why people wince at the chips as people, but I what you're talking about, nobody wants to feel like they're being trafficked or
Yeah.
basically is gambled
It's
upon.
very dehumanizing, but I struggle with finding a better analogy.
Well, I mean, I think really what you're saying though is like honestly, it's like you're taking positions, and those positions can either succeed or they can fail. But you know, if you take enough positions with the odds and the chances that are in the fate's hands, you really could win a couple times or at least once, and that's enough. One time is all you need to keep playing the table, and I think that is something where. For those that are out there wanting to dreaming of being in the games industry, especially dreaming of being your own company, it's realizing just how much is not in your hands and how much is about just laying out an effective strategy that allows you to keep playing at the table. Because honestly, one bad decision and you're out. If you have a couple of positions, you can keep playing. Maybe you're not rolling, but you're still in play. And I think with your analogy, with the way you put that out there, it's true. I mean, it's good to hear there's someone else out there that actually sees the same thing. Welcome to the casino of video games, and
Yeah.
let's see what happens. It's no wonder Pachinko made video games.
Well, I actually kinda think about it a little differently. Like, I think about it, I'm trying to design a business where I take the gambling out of it,
Yeah,
right?
of course.
Like I want like, the gambling is the problem, right? And so I'm trying to build a business where you're still rolling dice at the end of the day, you're still gambling, but, like, where the results of the dice roll matter a lot less to the sustainability of the business, you know? And it is hard though, the problem with our business, like, every business has strengths and weaknesses, and it sounds like our business is great. Well, there's a lot of problems with our shit, and one of them is we're currently, a singles and doubles business. It's really hard for us to get a triple or a home run based on the nature of the work we do, Like, most of what we do, like I said, it's co-dev, it's porting, it's that sort of stuff, up-reses or whatever. It is really fixed, budget, relatively low margin work, you know? It's pretty secure too, like, it's not gonna fail you unless something really goes wrong in the project, which, we've done enough of these now where we don't expect that to be the case, um, but it's also not gonna fund, a next, like, $20 million AAA game for us, right? And so, uh, we that's why we're always doing one original thing at a time, is so we still have like, one of our projects has that triple and home run capability, right? Um, and when I say, like, you need enough swings at the bat when you're running a business, I don't mean for the singles or doubles, I mean for the triples or the home runs, right? But to have a chance for the triples, it's like small ball, right? It's like Moneyball. Like, for the chance for the triples and the home runs to mean anything, you need people on base, and that's why all the rest of the companies focus on hitting singles and doubles, so
That is actually a really good way of putting it, because I think the thing is, in the end of removing the gambling element from it, what I take from that is that you're just trying to increase the probability of success.
yeah.
It's probability. I mean, you're basically looking at probability of you winning versus you losing or you being out. So I think that ultimately, in the end, having that spread, having people looking at it, and really analyzing your business, because let's take a step back. All we've just said in the past 15 minutes is really understanding the nature of your business, understanding the nature of how you interact and how you operate, and understand how what you do correlation to the market and your partners, how that can create value. But to get to that point, to get to exactly what we've just said, there's a maturing and understanding of business that has to be there, that goes beyond just making games. And so this kind of brings me back over to where you were saying, you got that point where you and Chelsea realized you've tapped out in terms of how much you guys can do as human beings, obviously, because you can't be, you're not omnipotent. You need to have someone that can assist you, and then you guys get Adam. So how did you guys get Adam in there? I mean, he's basically living large, balling at PlayStation. So what's going on?
Yeah, like, this is a new audience, so I normally assume everyone knows all these stories already, but this is a new audience, so probably not. So I'll talk about it for a minute. It's because I worked with Adam at Midway, back we both got there in 2003, and we were on the same project, and we were basically attached at the hip on all the projects we were at Midway, until he left for Capcom, right? And became really fast friends and really got a lot of respect for each other, and, the way we both feel the same way about making games and are passionate about the same things, and, um, then, when he went to Capcom, he actually gave he him and Craig was there, and Scott, Bayless was there, and they were all ex-Midway guys, and they're trying to get me "Hey, you should just quit and make your own company, and we can work with you." And I'm like, "Well, yeah, I don't know. It sounds risky. I've never run a company before. I don't really know what I'm doing." And they were bugging me for years before I finally did it. And then once we did it, we actually got our first deal with Capcom. I was working on Dark Void and a little help work on Bionic Commando, barely anything at all, but mostly Dark Void for the PS3. And, and that kind of like gave me the safety net of like, hey, here's a safe business relationship with 3 people I trust. And this is like enough of a thing where if it doesn't work out, let's get a job after this. It's not a big deal. I didn't really have I didn't see the company growing to 180 people it is today back then. It was kind of like Midway's a shit show. There's a real possibility this just disappears one day altogether. I should get out before that happens. And so that's what all those things kind of combined made me take the plunge. Um, and fast forward a little bit later, Adam left Capcom and started his own thing called Beefy Media, and he did some entrepreneurial things in the video game space there for a while I was still like kind of building IG up. Then he went to Sony, and that is a very storied run he had at Sony of transitioning from the PS3 to the PS4. Obviously, him and his whole team. Obviously, just not Adam didn't do anything alone. Um, and then we're still friends. We're still like Adam has always been through this stretch. One of my very best friends and closest people, and people knows me as well as anybody does, just about right. And so we're having dinner one day, and he's like, I'm just bored at this job. Like, we're looking at like what's next on the horizon, and I just don't wanna do it again. I'm just kinda bored, and I'm looking for something new to do, and I'm like, "Well, that's kind of timely because we've just kinda realized we need a lot more help." And it took about 2 years of talking about it before it finally happened, um, and, it was really important to me that when, because I think Chelsea's title at the time was, like, director of production or something, right? And, I'm like, "Okay, when we bring Adam on, we can't not recognize the achievements or the stuff that Chelsea has brought to this company, and we wouldn't be where we are now and make it a place Adam wants to join without Chelsea's kind of accomplishments." And so when Adam joined as CEO, we made Chelsea Chief Product Officer. Her title's changed a lot. It was Chief Product Officer, then it was Chief Operating Officer, and now she's actually co-CEO with Adam. Um, and so the 3 of us kind of now make up the hive mind of the company likes to call us the tripod, which I hate. But I think that is a kind of apt analogy because, we're 3 separate things, but we're all tied together at one point. And so, it's kind of a fitting analogy. But yeah, that's how, like, my history with Adam and how he ended up with us.
Well, it's interesting because the thing is like this, like I think a tripod it is really something that every organization has to strive for in order for it to scale. I mean, there's no way to do it with one, let alone two. Three really brings the stability to an organization, and I think that that's a fascinating kind of movement where the way you brought in Adam and basically also understanding that Chelsea, she's been there with you. I think almost from day one. I mean, coming in
Yeah,
there.
she was there. She was like, I think she joined us like 14 months into it. So she's been here almost the entire time.
It's just, I mean, for as long as I can remember, Chelsea's always been there, and so she literally, bootstrapped with you, helped put this together with you to bring this up, and I think that how you frame that and make sure that everyone is fine. I mean, I think it's important, and that's also, I mean, that's masterful because in the end of the day, we want to make sure everyone who has been there and making it happen does their part and feels appreciated. How do you find having, 3 CEOs? Because that's what that's always something I'm curious about. How does that work? I mean, obviously titles are titles, but like in terms of basically your guys's movement, how is that? How does that all come together?
Yeah, it's interesting, and I tried to explain this to Adam as best I could, but it's the kind of thing where unless you work at Iron Galaxy, you don't really understand it and appreciate it. Like, I tried to explain to Adam very early on that, like, listen, and ultimately, Iron Galaxy's titles don't really matter. Like, I want people focused on the work they're doing and not the work they need to do to go up a rung and become like, junior programmer 2 to junior programmer 3. Like, just find out what the game or whatever you're working on today needs and just do that thing, and don't worry about the rest of the shit. And that extended all the way to ours. But, when you are in the position I was in the company, other companies I deal with, they expect to be dealing with a certain title or a certain rank. And so we only had titles for people really that were externally facing to the company. And that was just for our partners' benefit. It wasn't like a reflection of the work we were doing. And I really tried to explain it to Adam. And then, when he got here, I think it was like the first 6 months were super rough because, you know, we've talked about this a little. We should probably talk about it more now that we've kind of gotten through it all and do it. Me and him should probably have a sit down and just kind of chop it up more. But like, it was a lot of like, oh, I'm not really the CEO. Like, we all decide everything together and everything's done by the three of us and we want consensus. And there's been, consensus is often very painful among the three of us. We often disagree about things and how we should do them and whatever it is. It's not the same as being CEO and just making calls, right? And so I think like part of Adam felt like he got sold a bill of goods there for a little bit, even though I tried to be as clear as I could. And then that kind of took a long time to kind of bounce back from and figure it out. And the first 3 years were up and down, and some of the relatively good things happened, but some of the lowest lows in my personal working career happened during those 3 years, right? Like, uh, just Adam and Chelsea and I were not vibing, um, at a lot of important things over a lot of important shit. And then we all committed to putting in the work. We committed to respecting each other. We had a we Adam one cool thing Adam did when he was at Sony is he had like a business coach, and he got me linked up with her while he was at Sony, and I was still using her before he joined. And so we started talking to her as a group and letting her hash out our problems and kind of like steer us through these things. And literally, we were like at the brink of like, okay, one of us has to quit. Like this is not working. And then just through putting in the work and having the tough conversations and like putting the time in with each other, we got through it. And now it's strong as can be. Like there's nothing that could get between us, I don't think. And so it was really touch and go there for a while, but we got through it, and it's only because they were willing to put in the work like I was. And it was a really rough 6 month span there, but I'm glad we're through it because now I think we're in like we're indestructible at this point. I don't think anything could stop us. So
Obviously, Adam was coming from a corporation to basically, let's call this a medium-sized business, an SME, small medium enterprise, and basically the needs and the operations of a business that is independently owned and operated are very different from that of a corporation. Yet at the same time, you also take a look back and the growth that you had from being you and your founding team to where you are now, that itself has its own challenges, obviously, because you're not, let's put it this way. It was cool when we were all inside of a bedroom, and now we're basically running a company with, nearly 200 people. That's something, that's an astonishing feat. And to do that where every brick you have laid or have laid and been a part of with your team, that is where you basically feel those bumps. And I'm curious how, as you look at it now with the maturing that you have with your leadership team and the fact that you guys come together, as you look backwards, and you wrote a really beautiful thing on Twitter that, I think everyone should honestly see, that the retrospective of Iron Galaxy. I remember reading this being like, wow, this is great. That's like, I felt like I lived that with you as I was reading those messages.
well, yeah, we talked a lot about all those things probably.
That's just it. It's like, I mean, thinking about all that stuff, kind of going through it, it was quite phenomenal. I just thought, wow, Dave, this is really just nailing it perfectly. As you look at it now, like just with now that you have your co-CEOs and you're looking at the future, what are the things that you think are the major lessons that shaped Iron Galaxy's journey that you could share?
um, yeah, I mean, first off, before I say anything like that, it's really important caveat. Like every business is different, right? And like what was important and good for our business might not necessarily be important for your business, right? And like so any of this stuff, like this is not like a how to tell all thing. This is just like, hey, this worked for this one dude, and this one group of people, this one company, and you should look at all advice through like that filter, right? But like I think the single most important thing for us is, we for a long time they were kind of we worked through this code of values I had in my head. And people that had just kind of been at the company long enough or worked with me back at Midway, because most of the people that started the company and most of the senior staff to this day worked with me at Midway, and they've just been with me long enough where they understand like the code of conduct and the values I expect just through osmosis, just through trial and error of, like, screwing things up and me yelling at him or me saying "good job," which I almost never do because I just, like, I'm just not wired that way. Um, but once we started growing, it was it didn't work by osmosis anymore, and so I think one of the most important things we did was I think this was we could do this when we might have done it before Adam got there. Maybe we did it right when Adam got there. I think this might have been an exercise to kind of this might be totally wrong. Maybe Chelsea did it on her own before Adam got there, but I wanna say it was like we were having trouble explaining to Adam about some of the values and why we do what we do, and so I think we decided at that point, "Okay, let's make a deck about it," right? And we wrote it all down, and we talked about it for, like, 6 months, like, what are our values? Like, what are these things in my head that still make sense? What are the things in my head that maybe I should let go because they're not valid anymore? And we kind of, came up with this core philosophy about, like, the way we make decisions, right? And it's not about products, and it's not about dollar signs, it's not about profitability. It's like, this is the criteria by which we make decisions by, you know? And now, that deck has turned into something that Adam walks every new employee through on their first day in the company, you know? They get a meeting with CEO, Adam, part of their orientation is he walks them through our values deck, right? And this values has become, like, hopefully anyway, like, maybe I'm, full of shit here, but I hope it's become, like, the language of the company and the way people think about, like, what they should be doing and how they should be doing things, and is this okay to do? Is this permissible or is it not? And, that's the single most important thing I think we've done because it's without that backbone of everyone on the same page knowing why we do what we do, even if they disagree, if they understand why we do what we do and we walk what we talk, I think everyone gets it, and it makes it scalable in a way that it just wasn't before. So, I think that's probably the single most important thing we've done.
So, I mean, that's actually, yeah, it makes sense. You sat down and basically said, "This is what I care about. This is what we stand for. This is what we as a team will accomplish." And basically, that self-selection becomes very clear once you know what you're going to get into and really what you need to live up to. So, I mean, as you look towards the future of Iron Galaxy, and I mean, you guys have a lot of things going for you. So, I mean, where do you see it? I mean, where's your place within the industry? Where do what would you like to see happen?
This was another thing that drives Adam absolutely nuts or drove him nuts. I think he's over it by now, but, like, you know, Adam would ask very healthy questions like, "What's the five-year plan?" and "What's the goal for the next 3 years?" or whatever. And I would always say the same thing, like, "I don't have goals or plans." Like, they don't they like, a lot of business people, like, not just Adam, like, it's a very normal reaction to be like, "You're a fucking moron. Like, how do you run a business? It's irresponsible to run a business like yours without a plan." And, the reason I don't have a plan per se is because I don't need one to meet my goal, and my goal and our goal is to, again, build a company we can retire from, right? And, you do that through a lot of different ways, but one of them, to really be independent and to really be in charge of your own destiny, you need financial independence, right? Which we don't have. Like, we're nowhere near being financially independent. And we are very dependent on all of our partners. We're paying us money to do the work we do for them, right? And, like this year, that's literally 100% of our revenue is came from business to business things, right? Um, well, I guess 99.9% of our revenue came from that because someone somewhere bought a copy of Dive Kick one day or something, and I'm sure we got a little money from that. But regardless, it's like, and when that's your reality, like, I don't know what people are working on, like, in the second half of next year yet, right? We don't even know what projects we're doing because they're not signed yet because those teams aren't available yet. It's just not the way this kind of business development occurs. Like, is it possible to have a plan? Because every plan changes every single week then, right? So the goal is just to get better, stronger, faster until we do, the one of those swings we take turns into a home run, right? And then once one of those swings we take turns into a home run, then we plan and then we set goals and then we do hardcore, like, okay, what does success look like? What does failure look like with this money we want to spend? It'll be a much bigger version of, like, whatever the budget we set aside for the publishing experiment, right? It'll be a much bigger version of that, like, 100x, 1000x bigger. And so, uh, 5 years we could be anything. Maybe we've hit that home run and we're Rocket League now. And, we're doing our own thing and we're just working on original titles. Maybe we're exactly like we are now, except bigger. Maybe we're instead of 185 people or whatever, we're 500 people, and we're helping everyone in the world make their games because One thing I know to be true is video games is hard, and it's getting harder by the day, and as long as that's true, we'll be in business. Which of those 2 outcomes happen, it doesn't matter to me. It absolutely doesn't matter because either are getting me closer to the ultimate goal of being in business forever, you know? Um, would one be more preferable? Sure. But, like, if I'm still here in 5 years and we're kicking ass and taking names, still doing exactly what we're doing now, I'm 100% fine with that outcome.
Well, I mean, I think that you do have a plan. It's not that you don't have one. The plan is very straightforward. Retire from this company. I mean, that's the plan. And
Yeah,
whatever's the service of that is part of the plan. And I get it. I mean, I get when people want to have those 5-year visions, 3-year visions. I mean, I get it. I mean, I do them all the time. I walk through it. I walk through with the team. I help them understand where I want to go, where I want to take the business, where we're going. But you're right on one thing. It's like it's as good as what happens the next quarter because the reality is unless you're balling, you will basically face the winds of change and you will face the seas of insanity, which is this industry. And all you can do is point your ship in the right direction and hope that you're sailing north or going to wherever the promised land happens to be within your mind and within your vision. So, I mean, I think as I hear you talk, it's something that I think every entrepreneur, every video game developer, independent developer, anyone who basically is out there doing something that is a labor of love, a passion, and basically has turned it into a way to sustain their livelihood, they can relate to that. What it will never be is let's do our MRP, let's do our mid range plan, let's do our
right.
range plan, let's do our long plan because that implies a tremendous amount of capital that can actually buffer and basically buttress anything that would happen. It doesn't mean that it's not important to do. I do believe planning is important. I think it helps you to understand things. But those who live and die on a plan, that is intricate and complicated without the proper financing or the proper execution, can find themselves in kind of a heartache situation.
A plan is better than no plan, 100% absolutely. More what I'm saying when I say, like, planning is dumb or whatever, I say something, like, just very opaque like that. It's not actually that opaque. Like, what I mean is, like, it was like when we started making schedules for video games, like, 20 years ago or whatever, and what a schedule was, it was like a week by week, if not a day by day thing for every person on the project for the duration of the project. So say the project was a year, right? You'd make a schedule for what this person is gonna do every day for the next year. And then what people learned that's how every game company did scheduling. Um, and then what people figured out is like, wait a minute, like the game changes all the time. As the game changes all the time, like the tasks become irrelevant, or we need new tasks to reflect what the game is today. And we're spending about as much time like adjusting this schedule as we do like working on the game. Like it's the schedule is actually pretty meaningless. So let's change how we schedule. Let's really focus intensely on the short term and let's get maybe to the half day accuracy in the short term. And then we'll keep that rolling out as the game goes on. It's kind of like some kind of scrum methodology or like or a modified waterfall scheduling technique or whatever. And I kind of just am applying that to like the financials of the business. It's like I have very little insight into what's going to happen after everything we've got currently signed is done, and let's just acknowledge that and not fret about what it could be. And I can make a bunch of plans, and Chelsea can make a bunch of plans, and Adam can make a bunch of plans. What I'm saying is not that those plans are bad or worthless. I'm saying, generally speaking, like 9 times out of 10, it's not worth the energy you put into making them because something that underpins that plan is going to change, right? And so that's more what I say. Like, I don't mean plans are dumb or whatever. I just mean, like, generally speaking, like it's effort that could be better spent somewhere else because so much stuff changes all the time.
You know what I love about this conversation is that we're talking about a reality here where, like you said, 2 quarters from now, no idea what happens. But yet you're not stressed. At least you're not giving it off. You're not, the world's not ending tomorrow. There's a confidence in knowing the fact that what you guys do as a business and the services you provide, that those are in demand and that the work will be there. You couldn't say what it is yet, but you at least know that it is possible. And I'm curious how you have seen people that have gone from more secure, predictability of paychecks and revenue coming into, yeah, we kill what we eat. And if we don't kill, there ain't anything we're eating. How have you seen that? I mean, and let me ask you, in the same breath, your own comfort with that. I mean, how are you on that?
Yeah, it's a definitely a learned skill. Like the best way to describe it is it's like a callus, right? It's like I remember we got started and I had the first 2 employees, I'm like, "Fuck, now I gotta come up with, like, 15,000 a month to pay these guys." Like, fuck. Like, how am I gonna come up with 15,000 a month? Like, and that stopped me from hiring anyone for the first 6 months of the business, right? But eventually I did it. And then 15, it's like, wow, if I wanna hire these guys, it's gonna turn into 50. I'm committing to generating $50,000 a month for the rest of my life. Like, that's what I'm promising everyone here, because again, the goal is to never lay somebody off for financial reasons. Like, we don't do like seasonal hires equivalent, right? And so it's a semi-permanent bond, hopefully, when you join IG. And so, then 50 turns into 100. It's like, fuck. And then 100 turns into 300. It's like, fuck. And then 300 turns into 750. It's like, holy shit, I gotta come up with 750,000 every month to keep this thing floating for the rest of my fucking life. And then at some point, you just learn that it's like, I've got it. Like we've built a process and the process works. And I've seen enough ups and downs in the cycle. Like, video games are cyclical like everything else. There's ups and downs in our business. We've survived 2 downs. Like what we're doing is working and I've got confidence in it. And I built a callus to that stress, essentially. So even when it's down, things are down for us. Like I don't get stressed about it because it's either gonna, this is the other thing too. It's like an understanding, a deep, deep understanding of like everything that has a beginning has an end. You know, like Iron Galaxy is gonna go out of business one day. Hopefully, it's 100 years from now or 1,000 years from now and not next month, you know? But rest assured it will go out of business one day. With 100% certainty it will. And when you think about it like that, it also kind of takes a lot of the pressure, like the fear of going out of business, it just kind of evaporates. Like once you have a deep understanding of that notion, and it's not just lip service, but you deeply believe it and understand it, because you're gonna go out of business one day. Don't worry about it. It's gonna happen. Just run the business the best you can, you know? And so, it's always tough though, like, when you like, the original question, I needed that kind of backdrop to tell is like, you know, like, when Chelsea first got exposed to the financials and when Adam came in and got exposed to the financials and, our finance team gets exposed to the financials or whoever, when they come in, they didn't get to start at $15,000 and then go to 50 and then go to 150 and then go to 300. They're coming in and it's a chunky boy. you know, it is what it is today when they're coming in. And so they have to deal with that kind of stress without having the callus I have, right? And I don't know how they do it. Like, I don't think I'd sleep. So that's it's just it's unnatural to be as confident as I am about it. But it's just something I've learned, and I think, kind of proven out over the last 12 years is like, you know, this is just it's gonna work as long as we keep doing what got us here, you know?
I think probably one of the reasons I can't speak for them, but I would imagine that it's also your confidence. They see you and your ability to go through this,
Actually,
knowing
I think it unnerves them greatly.
it
Yeah,
probably
I don't think that helps actually.
feel like this. Well, look, I mean, here's the thing. I mean, I think about it all the time. Well, all the time being when I speak to other entrepreneur owners and founders, and I'm like, there's a zen to this. Your mind goes into a zen state where you call it a callus, and for me, it's a zen moment. It's literally it's like that great line. I think it's an Apocalypse Now. That's like you're already dead. You
Yeah,
know, like that's kind of this thing, and I find this very purifying, almost death silence with it. That I don't know. I enjoy it. For me, it's like a warm blanket. It's like it is what it is, and it will be fine as long as we do what we need to do. And I think this is something where over time it develops. And at one moment in time, I think, at least for me, how I experienced it was that you begin to realize just how much you can create, just how much you can actually do when you focus, when you basically align everything that is required. And I don't know. I mean, for me, it's almost like a celebration of what it means to be human. It's like, yes, we need to eat. Yes, we need to take care of people. But yes, we have to work. And so it's almost like I don't know. For me, it's like a challenge every month, and I enjoy it. It's a weird, I guess, sickly pleasure of like, well, let's see what happens now, But
yeah,
you're going to make it. I mean, of course you're going to make it because what other option do you have? Because the downside isn't what you want to go through. So I guess, as I'd love to say, starvation is the greatest motivator. Clearly, you
yeah.
starve. So I always find that fascinating, and I guess moving into the part of the future. I mean, obviously, you've built something that around our industry, everyone knows you guys, everyone sees you guys. They know you guys are, you know your shit, you know how to take care of business. You know, what do you think is in store for the industry from your vantage point, Dave? If you had the crystal ball, is video are we a flash in the pan industry, or are we actually going to be relevant forever? I mean, where do you think this goes?
Yeah, I mean, I think, at this point, I think we've exceeded flash in the pan. It's been, like, what, 30 years? They could argue longer, I guess, going back to stuff like that, but, like, yeah,
30.
I think, like, I think without a doubt, it's, like, gonna be I guess, how do I answer that question in a way that is, like, semi-original? Like,
You can crib it if you want. It's up to you.
yeah, I mean, it's like, I guess, like, if you look at it, it's like, no one like, book publishing's on the outs, right? They had a 2,000-year run of making books, and it was a really healthy business for a long time, and now it's finally like, okay, people don't wanna consume their media like that anymore, And hopefully this is the start of like a 2,000-year run for video games. Hopefully we're at the beginning of that. We have a run like books did, but like I definitely don't see it going anywhere, or going away. Like people need kind of joy in their life. They need play in their lives. They're going to need distractions. In this interconnected world, you need distractions more than ever. And so, I don't think it's going anywhere. And yeah, I think as long, there's always going to be room in this business for just talented developers, like, there's I remember one of my friends, who got started they started, a company that's now called Disbelief. They were ex-Midway crew, Steve Anachini and Steve Elmore, and they're like, "Hey, we're starting up and we're gonna do co-dev programming kinda like you guys do, like, could you help us out?" And they think they felt a little weird about it because it's like, they were viewing it as like, "Oh, we're just telling them we're gonna be competing with them or whatever." And it's like, dude, there's enough here for everybody. Like, there there's very few times like, most of the time when we lose a bid, it's for one of 2 reasons. It's either, um, you just we the Tetris pieces didn't fit. It's the wrong size project at the wrong time in our availability window, and it just doesn't fit for us right now, so we can't do it. Or it's just the price was the most overwhelming factor for the partner, and we're never gonna be the cheapest. It's always one of those 2 reasons, right? It's not like other legitimate competition beat us out. There's always room for everybody in this. And so it's like I just think there's gonna be new interesting developers popping up and kind of fill in the gap that some of the ones that are leaving, um, are they're gonna just create new, spaces for themselves in new ways. And, like, VR, like, I've never been a big believer in VR, but if you ask me, like, is AR and VR, like, will it be something one day? Like, absolutely. Like, is that next year? I don't think so, but, like, one day it will be, and that's gonna be, the next kind of, like, forging grounds for, like, what video games are, I think.
And from that standpoint of basically the fact that there's always room. This industry with its cyclical nature, it's kind of consolidation and then ultimate explosion into little developers and then reconsolidation. What do you make of it right now? I mean, it's hot. M&A is hot. Everything's on fire. Everything's for sale. Everything's being bought. Huge moves are happening. I mean, what do you think on that? I mean, do you think that this is I mean, it's just a time and place, or are we going to get to a point where basically it will turn into we got like 5 film studios and like, there's a Fox Searchlight, or
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, are we just a bunch we're going to be running around with our cameras trying to make the next Blair Witch? I mean, where are we?
Yeah, no, I think M&A is always hot around beginning of any new hardware cycle. Like, there's always like, "Okay, we need games. How are we gonna get games? Okay, we need to acquire developers. We need to, like, build out our portfolio of whatever it is." But it's like triple so or quadruple so what it would normally would be now because of, the Game Pass phenomena. And, like, the only thing like, if you look at the revenue Game Pass generates for Microsoft and all these similar services are trying to replicate that, it's like, it is it is the business now, like, for Microsoft, like Game Pass, right? Like, that's not a secret. Like, I'm not telling, like, tales out of school here. Like, that is absolutely the business they're in is Game Pass business, not more so than the Xbox business. And they need content, exclusive content to feed that monster they built, you know? And so that's why all the consolidation is happening right now. It's because everyone is like, we need our own Game Pass. EA needs theirs. Ubi has theirs. All these other smaller companies like Embracer, right, is trying to fire out. I have to assume they're doing all this for a reason. They're acquiring all these studios because they want all this exclusive content. And so couple in like, hey, it's normal that it would happen at this time in the cycle with exclusive content is like 10x more prevalent than it was start of last gen, you know? And it just kinda makes sense. And so I don't know if it has to diminish at some point because it can't keep this. There's not enough developers in the world for it to keep this pitch it's at right now. Um, but like, is it a selling market for good developers now? Like, absolutely it is. Like, it might not ever be better than this. So if you wanna get out, now's a good time.
That I mean, you imagine all these questions that are happening for people all over. I mean, it's amazing to see this. I mean, you look at it through the lens of history, and I'm sure Iron Galaxy does it. I'm sure you look at it as an entrepreneur, and I mean, I do it all the time. And you just think about if you could go back in time to the first day you started, what would you tell yourself?
Oh,
Like,
Jesus.
yeah, like we're going there now.
Yeah.
Pour yourself some malt and let's talk it.
I think I did some tweets about this a couple of years ago, and where I landed was I would tell myself is pretty much everything I think today is wrong,
Yeah,
right?
I
And,
got you.
like, everything I think I know about this business, and I think I know about people, and I think I know about the world, and I think I know about happiness, and what I think I know about actual hard work, it's all almost all wrong. And if you're not open to learning those lessons, like, do not go on this journey, right? Because you will fail. And so I think it's just, like, thinking back to the person I was, 12 years ago, 12 and a half years ago, whatever it is, um, yeah, it's unrecognizable in a lot of ways, you know? And I like to think that most of the changes are for the better. I become a much better person, kind of more well-rounded, kind of more empathetic, more thoughtful, more introspective. But boy, is it like, yeah, it's hard to it's like, I lived it and I can't even necessarily see the personal journey like from there to here, clearly. It's pretty crazy.
It's funny as every time I think of this, like, do you remember that scene in Pee Wee's Big Adventure when he's like, Dottie asks him why are we gonna stay to watch the movie, and he
Yeah,
lived it. I always laugh because I think about that, and it's funny that I going through my closet here, I found some tapes from back in the day when you actually used to record things on tape,
yeah.
and one of them is a 19-year-old me about to literally I'm flying to Europe and I'm about to and then I arrive in Europe and it would be 3 months later that I would start working and starting Streamline. And that
Holy
person
cow.
is like I mean, besides the fact that I'm at the time 20, barely just turning 20, I mean, looking at him like, man, this kid has no clue what's about to happen. And
Yeah,
looking at that, and of course, I love it because I mean, I would change nothing of it. It was such it's been such a hell of a ride, but it's something where it's like you don't know what you don't know, and that ignorance is such a incredible experience because, almost like this for me, I would just love to live it again because it's just been such a exceptional ride. But at the same time, I mean, I look at it from that standpoint that being able to speak with people like yourselves and what really video games real talk is all about is having these conversations so that people out there that are listening can learn and either be encouraged to do it, keep holding on if they're in the midst of it, or basically gain some knowledge, say, hey, listen, it's going to be all right. And I look at like you said 12 years ago, I remember when we first met. I mean, I remember that clear as day.
yeah,
I mean, I totally agree with you. It's like the growth and trajectory from just me knowing you and then you knowing me, I mean, my God, man. I mean, we have definitely, I guess you could say, I want to say matured because it sounds like we're a bunch of immature people, which I like to think I still am. But it's kind of this process, but
Let's call it wizened. Let's call it wizened.
it's like we've become like fine wine. We've become Sean
Yes.
Connery, like, you but it's one of those things where you have to be able to reflect, and I think this is something that for especially for us in the video games business and just entrepreneurs in general, that ability to get to look back on what it's took to almost celebrate the struggle, enjoy the struggle, almost like, freak out when the struggle ain't there. That's really what becomes that moment and that motivation, at least what I have found to be like, okay, this is the right path. Because if there is no struggle, that's when I freak out. I actually found out I freak out when there's no struggle because
Yeah.
I can't possibly be right. I don't know. How do you feel about that? Is it just I'm under some psychosis here, or do you get do you ever feel like that?
It's not so much that I'm like, "It can't be right," so much as I know it won't last, right?
Yeah,
It's
that's a good way of
like,
saying it.
however good it is now, it's gonna be equally shitty at some point in the future, you
Yeah, well,
know?
it's true.
And you just gotta be ready for that, like, it's like when I explain to people, like, "Hey, how do you do biz dev?" or whatever, you know? And I explain to them why biz dev is such a hard job emotionally. Um, on the surface, it seems like you're flying around the world and you're going to awesome restaurants and you're drinking wine and doing all this shit and out partying with people and doing all it seems awesome, but, like, the reason it's so hard emotionally is when you especially when you're getting started, this isn't true anymore, but when we were getting started, you mentioned this earlier, like, you get told no 99 times for every one time you get told yes, right? And that one yes, it's not so good that it offsets the 99 no's, you know? Like, the 99 no's weigh on you more than that one yes feels good because you immediately know, "Oh, shit, I need another yes in 2 months," you know? Like, you never run out of needing yeses, and people never run out of telling you no, and you have to be tough to deal with that. Like, I'm not a super macho dude, I'm not like I hate, like, toxic masculinity and all that shit, but it's like, this is one of those things, like, whether you're a man or a woman, like, you need to be tough. 'Cause
Yeah,
this shit is not for everybody.
you
And if you're not willing to hear no over and over and over again, and you can't keep the self-doubt out of your head, like, that's not a job for you. And so, that's the yeah, it's just it's a hard job. It's not super rewarding at times.
I mean, I'm, like, sitting here nodding. If I had a 40, I'd be pouring it out right now because, I mean, that's the damn truth. That is the truth. If you don't have the ability to hear no a million times and then get right back up again and get like, "Hey, no thing. This ain't for you."
Yeah.
It's just not. And, hearing you talk about that emotional side of biz dev, it's like you're absolutely right. That emotion, it's like, the exhilaration, the angst, the desire, the push, fueled and hopped up on, endless drinking and nonstop party, and while at the same time trying to live a normal life. Yeah, it's not human by any sense of the imagination. Yet at the same time, it is the most human thing that exists, and I think that is why very few people can actually do that job. And I know that we always joke about it, but what we joke about is basically the up times. What we don't joke about is the downtime and those rejections and getting feeling like someone kicked you in the stomach or punched in the teeth. I mean, it's a rough ride. So I know that you have a podcast, and I'd love to know about that. What was the impetus on the podcast, and what's your thing about that?
Yeah, so, the podcast is called Team GFB Radio, and the reason we got it started is one of my oldest best friends at Midway, Daryl Wisner, who I think you've met, um, we just kind of like, work got so busy and, like, the company grew so much that we just kind of stopped talking to each other, and we kinda always kicked around the idea of doing a podcast together or whatever, but eventually it's like, well, if we do a podcast, we're gonna have to talk to each other once a week, right? And so we started this, it's like 6 or 7 years ago now. And for the first couple of years, we were very like, we would do 1 a week and we were very diligent. And it's really like a podcast about nothing. Like, it's really just us talking about whatever we want to talk about. Like, it's a lot of like, "Hey, what'd you play this week? What'd you think of this game?" It's a lot of like, "Hey, here's an interesting anecdote, one I can actually share in the public because it's not NDA'd." It's like, "Hey, I went on this awesome trip. Let me tell you about it." It's, "Hey, I got a new dog." It's just kind of like us just hanging out, letting other people listen in to the conversations. And, then we just kinda got burned out with it because it's kind of hard to do like, if nothing happens in your life, then we don't have a show to talk about. It's not like we can talk about the news or, whatever. It's just like and we kinda got just tired of having to put out a show every week, and so we kinda just iced it out for a little bit. But then we brought it back last January and started a Patreon, where we, like, get some money in every month to pay an editor and pay for hosting and stuff. So it eases the burden and hopefully won't make it as much of a burnout as it is. But it's kind of like all over the map, and it's just kind of like a fun hangout kind of thing. It's definitely not focused like this one is, right? Like this one, like you're doing a good job. And like if I'd known like what my podcast would end up being with Daryl, like I would have changed the charter because it's hard to do the kind of podcast we do and make it good with any kind of regular cadence. So I think you're off to a roaring start with this one already.
Well, man, I appreciate that. I mean, as someone who basically is just, doing this just as a, I mean, it's more of a thing just to keep sharing the knowledge and spreading it and being able to talk with our friends and really talk to interesting people that have something to say and something to share. I think that makes it worth it. But I mean, it means a lot to me to hear from you what you think about it so far, and of course to have you on the show. I mean, you've been on the vlog, and now you're on the podcast here, and obviously, I love what you've been able to accomplish, the journey, you and your team, and of course the positive attitude you always have, man. I got to tell you, that's one of the things. Dave Lang is always big in my book because even when it's shitty, you're still smiling. It's the craziest thing to me, but of course I'm not there every day. I mean, I don't wake up next to
I'm always just the thing is I'm always like the Hulk, right? Like I'm always smiling on the outside, but I'm always crying on the inside.
you. Are you like that Boys Town? Remember the comic book ads? It was just like
Yeah, exactly. There's a throwback. That's an old one.
just makes
Yeah.
me laugh, you know what I think? But you're right, man. And you hold it well. But I mean, I think the thing is in the end, it's really just about these moments, man. It's sharing and it's talking and of course being able to relate to other people who are in the same situation. And just for our listeners out there, people that are fascinated about the games industry or working in the games industry or moreover, just, taking the risk as the, as an investor in the games industry, God bless those people. Uh,
Yeah. Keep
it's
doing what you do, people.
keep spreading that cream because, everyone needs that, help us out, so it's important. And honestly, I really appreciate you taking the time to come on the show and talk and let us know and understand the world of Dave Lang and Iron Galaxy. Do you have anything else you'd like to share with the audience?
No, man, just, if you, liked my ramblings, check out my podcast, my Twitter feed. My pinned tweet is that one, uh, Alex was referring to. It's, Joseph J. Brony on Twitter. Otherwise, stay away from Twitter. It's a shithole. But that's the one bastion of goodness in Twitter is my pinned tweet. So go there.
No, I agree with you. And obviously, we'll link that on the show notes. We'll put it there. Everyone, please, definitely, follow Dave and take a look at his stuff. He's got wisdom there. And of course, the guys and gals at Iron Galaxy are doing an incredible job. Obviously, if you like what you've heard and you think this is actually worth listening to, please share it with your friends, spread the word. This was this week's episode of Video Games Real Talk with Alexander Fernandez and special guest Dave Lang. Dave, honestly, thank you so much.
But my pleasure, as always.